Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, collected by Alvin Schwartz and illustrated by Stephen Gamel. The Wendigo. A very wealthy man wanted to go hunting in a northern part of Canada where very few people had ever hunted. He traveled north and finally reached a trading post. He tried to find a guide that would take him, but no one would do it. They all said the same thing. It's too dangerous. Finally, he managed to find an Aboriginal who needed some money rather badly, and he had agreed to take him. The Aboriginal's name was Blackfeather. They made camp in the snow near a large frozen lake, and for 3 days they hunted, but they had nothing to show for it. On the third night, a great windstorm came up, and they lay in their tent listening to the wind howling and the trees whipping back and forth. To see the storm better, the hunter opened his tent. What he saw startled him. There wasn't a breath of air moving, and the trees were perfectly still. But he could hear the wind howling, and the more he listened, the more it sounded as if it were calling Blackfeather's name. Blackfeather, it called. Blackfeather! I must be losing my mind, the hunter thought. But Blackfeather had gotten out of his sleeping bag. He was huddled in the corner of the tent, his head buried in his arms. "What's this all about?" the hunter asked. It's nothing," Blackfeather said. But the wind continued to call to him, and Blackfeather became more agitated and tense and restless. Blackfeather, it called. Blackfeather. That was it. Suddenly he jumped to his feet and he began to run from the tent. The hunter grabbed him and wrestled him to the ground. "You can't leave me out here," the hunter shouted. And then the wind called again, and Blackfeather broke loose and ran into the darkness. The hunter could hear him. He was screaming as he went. Again and again he would cry out of the darkness, "Oh, my feet, my burning feet, my feet are on fire." And then his voice faded away, and the wind, it died down. At daybreak, the hunter followed Blackfeather's tracks in the snow. They went through the woods and down towards the lake, and then out over the ice. But soon he noticed something strange. The steps that Blackfeather had taken got longer and longer, farther apart. They were so far that no human being could have taken such a stride. It was as if something had helped him to hurry away. The hunter followed the tracks right out to the middle of the lake. But they disappeared. Now, at first he thought that Blackfeather had fallen through the ice, but there wasn't any sign of a hole. And then he thought that something had pulled him off the ice into the sky, but well, that made no sense. As he stood there wondering what had happened, the wind picked up again, and soon it was howling as if it had the night before, and he swore he heard Blackfeather's voice. It was coming from above, and again he heard Blackfeather screaming, My fiery feet, my burning feet!" But there was nothing to be seen. Now the hunter wanted to leave that place as fast as he could. He went back to camp and he packed. He did leave some food for Blackfeather, and then he started out. Weeks had passed before he reached civilization. A year had passed, and he decided to go back to hunt in that area again. He went to the same trading post to look for the guide. The people there could not explain what had happened to Blackfeather that night, but not a soul had seen him since. "Maybe it was the Wendigo," one of them said, and he laughed. It's supposed to come with the wind. It drags you along at great speed until your feet are burned away. More of you than that. Then it carries you up into the sky and it drops you to your doom. It's just a crazy story, though, but it's what some of the northerns say. A few days later, the hunter was at the trading post again. An aboriginal came in, and he sat by the fire. He had a blanket wrapped around him, and he wore his hat so low you couldn't see his face. The hunter thought there was something familiar about him. He walked over and he asked, "Are you Blackfeather?" The man didn't answer. "Do you know anything about him?" Still, not an answer. He began to wonder if something was wrong, if the man needed help, but he couldn't see his face. Are you all right, sir?" he asked, but no answer. To get a better look at him, he lifted the man's hat, and then he stepped back and he screamed. There was nothing under the hat but a pile of ash. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Wendigo, from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. My name's Wilhelm, and this has been a scary moment. If you like this or other stories, I recommend you dig up Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, or see the full-length feature film now available on any of your favorite streaming services.